Hey guys, it's Mana here, and I decided that I want to come back to Seduce Me one more time, and I just needed to see Matthew's ending, because someone told me that you see a lot of Simon throughout his ending. And I know Simon's the little albino serial killer squirrel that is insanely cute, so I need to see what on earth happens with that little serial killer of ours, okay?
But it looks so creepy.
But it's adorable. Obviously, I have to help Matthew with the cooking. I walked into the kitchen and instantly looked over at Matthew, who was quickly slicing up strawberries and placing them into a nearby bowl. I walked over and looked over his shoulder to watch. Matthew didn't seem to mind, so I decided to ask him a question. What are you making?
I'm going to make a large batch of strawberry cupcakes. These strawberries are going to be the top pieces.
Ooh, that sounds yummy. Ooh, that sounds delicious. Can I help?
Yeah, I kinda hoped you would. Can you start by making the batter for the cupcakes? I put the ingredients and some directions on the counter over there.
I nodded before heading over to another counter where a string of ingredients and a small note card of directions sat at the ready. I smiled and began to work, mixing the ingredients and pouring the batter into cupcake tins to bake. I had to admit, I made a little bit of a mess, but I felt like the cupcakes were still fine. There we go. Now we just need to wait. As I turned to face Matthew, I noticed Matthew's red face. I tilted my head before he walked over and moved his hand a bit towards my face. He stopped, however, looking to me for permission. Matthew continued to move his hand towards me, gently brushing a finger over my cheek. My senses tripled, feeling his finger wipe over a small stain of powder and cream that had landed on my face.
You got a stain.
Matthew's finger was ginger and timid, wiping the stain off with as little contact as possible. Lightning shot through my body at each wipe, running down my spine in jolts. I closed my eyes unconsciously, leaning into his touch, and naturally wanting more. However, Matthew pulled his hand away, causing me to open my eyes and look at him. Matthew was biting his lower lip and had pulled his hand to his chest.
Sorry, I got it all?
Oh, thank you. Matthew quickly shook his head and grinned his goofy grin at me before continuing to make another appetizer for the party. I blinked a couple of times, wondering if what I saw was real. Matthew was crouched near the kitchen doorway, peering into it as if a rat had gotten loose in the pantry and he was the stalking exterminator. Matthew?
Shh.
I quickly shut my mouth and pressed my lips together in silence, confused but fearful as to why I had to be quiet. I tiptoed to Matthew, who was crouching by the entrance to the kitchen. His gaze and head moved across the side of the chicken. The side of the kitchen. Wow, that was bad. Still trying to find whatever he was looking for.
He's in there.
What? Matthew's face was seriously fearful and intense. Who was freaking him out this much? My mind, however, instantly pinned the person down in my conclusion. Malix. Malix. Why did he come back, and why was he in my kitchen? I started to freak out, remembering the fear I had felt the first time we had met. However, I wasn't sure. Where were the others if it was Malix?
I lost sight of him, but I quickly found him and cornered him in there. I know he's in there.
Who's in there?
That fluffy killer thing.
Fluffy killer thing. I bit my lip, suppressing a laugh. Once I swallowed my laughter down, I let out a sigh. You mean your cute bunny doll?
Yeah, that thing. Wait, it's not cute!
Matthew instantly regretted not whispering and covered his mouth. I could not help but giggle. What's he doing in the kitchen? Matthew turned to me with an expression of utmost seriousness. Something told me that what he said would be cute and funny, but I decided to bite my tongue and gently to not laugh no matter what.
I don't know.
I failed to keep hold of myself and started to giggle again. The thought of a doll doing anything but sitting there made me giggle. Matthew tried to hush me, waving his arms frantically to keep me quiet. Matthew, Simon's a doll. It can't do anything.
You named him?
Of course. Of course, Simon Tabby. Isn't it cute? Matthew let out some sort of defeated whine before turning back to the kitchen, trying to find Simon from where he was. I placed our food on the table and looked as well. So, what's your plan of attack?
Well, I plan to make my way through the kitchen as quietly as I can, and hopefully not get stabbed.
That's a good plan. Sounds simple enough. Matthew nodded in agreement before finally moving from his spot and tiptoeing into the kitchen. I stood there, unsure of whether or not I should follow suit. Let's join the hunt. I didn't know why I was up for this, but I followed along. The small adventurous side of me was very happy with my decision, but another side of me was questioning me, asking me why I did that. Matthew slowly walked through the kitchen, scanning the cupboards and surfaces with a meticulous glare. It was both amusing and slightly frightening to see how serious he could be. Do all of your toys get out of control like this?
No, it's just this one. I don't know why. All my other toys are okay.
Other toys? Matthew nodded, stopping his search to look at me.
That's what I do. Make toys. I made them for my mother all the time back in the Abyssal Plains, to help her cope with her position.
Her position?
She's the fourth wife of my birth father. Each of us have a different mother, and all of them, except for Damien's, are queens. My mom, though, hates sharing, so I distracted her with toys.
I didn't know what to say. A demon with multiple wives seems natural, but I guess because I was human, I felt a twinge of disgust run through my veins nonetheless. Still, it was adorable how Matthew tried to cheer up his mom with his abilities. I was then suddenly reminded of my grandfather and how he made toys all the time for kids. Matthew's power to make small toys instantly would have been useful to my grandfather. I shook my head and began to search for Simon again. Let's keep looking for Simon. Matthew nodded before joining in. I felt like I was in a comedy mystery, looking for a child's toy instead of a murder weapon.
Come on out, creepy thing.
Its name is Simon. Matthew ignored my statement and began to slowly open the cupboards, sifting through the inside contents. I decided to follow suit, starting at the opposite end of the kitchen. Matthew, what do we do if we find him?
We stick him back in my pocket, and
I looked to Matthew, waiting for him to finish replying. However, he kept his eyes to the ground, trying to answer my question and remaining in thought. I continued to search the cupboards, unsure now if his plan was going to go anywhere. Why was I even doing this? Simon Tabby was a... What the? Matthew and I scanned the kitchen frantically, searching for the source of the laugh.
I knew that thing was evil!
Suddenly, everything went black. Who turned out the lights? I gripped to the nearby counter, not wanting to hit anything or fall in the darkness. There were no windows, so the room was almost completely pitch black. I could hear skittering across the floor like a rat rushing to escape with its cheese in mouth. I instantly jumped in fear before suddenly being pushed to the ground.
Watch out!
I felt myself hit the ground with a body over top of me. Two hands were slammed beside my head, onto the tile, stopping the person above me from crushing me.
Hey, are you okay?
Matthew? Yeah, I am. I stared up at Matthew, letting the situation sink in. We were looking for a doll, and now we were on the ground. What broke my thoughts was a flash of gold running across Matthew's eyes. I could feel heat radiate from his body, but the air was tense and his body was almost shaky. Matthew, are you okay?
I
heard him gulp, answering my question. He wasn't okay, I could tell, but he wasn't moving. Matthew?
Sorry.
Soon a golden glow covered Matthew's eyes. I expected to feel warmth in my body from an upcoming spell, but I felt nothing. Something was wrong.
I need you to push me off.
From the sound of his voice, he was desperate to get up and off of me. Why couldn't he move, though? Then it hit me. Matthew, do you need energy?
I do. But
Matthew shut his eyes to try and hide his golden gaze from me. He didn't want to take my energy. Why? Was he ashamed to? What do you think? If he needed energy, I was willing to give it. I gently grabbed Matthew's face and tilted his head to angle with mine. Leaning in closer to him, I brought my face and lips up to his and kissed him deeply. I didn't know if this would help, but it was how he got energy before. I shut my eyes, waiting for the draining feeling to reappear in my body. Matthew didn't move, nor did I feel energy drain from me. I opened my eyes and saw Matthew staring wide-eyed at me, but unmoving. He was unsure of what to do, and I had silenced him in confusion. I pulled away and spoke. I want to give you some of my energy. You've used a lot of it, and I'm sure that the energy you took from me was only used for healing. Let me help you.
I don't.
Matthew, if you don't want my energy, just tell me. But I'm offering it to you if you do. Ouch! All of a sudden, I felt that familiar feeling of warmth run through my body once again. I felt my body slightly heat up as Matthew wrapped an arm around my body and pulled my body tighter to his. Matthew grew a lustful gaze before bringing a hand up to cup the back of my neck. Before I knew it, Matthew pulled me into a gentle but passionate kiss. Heat erupted through my body, and his kiss slowly and almost timidly got deeper. Matthew kept an arm around my waist while I rested my hands on his chest. The energy from my body was slowly draining in the kiss, making me feel light and warm. It was almost pitiful how comfortable and how willing I was in this situation. Still, I held no regrets. I was enjoying every bit of the kiss. Matthew was full of surprise. As childish as he was, he definitely was proving to be a man while he was kissing me. Matthew wasn't forceful, but his kiss was deep and passionate, and it felt almost magical. It was how I imagined the first kiss to be like, except with energy drain. Soon, though, the energy drain stopped, and Matthew gently pulled his face away to end the kiss. I stared up at him as we both panted for air. I had never kissed like that before, and I was so lost in the moment that I had forgotten how to breathe. Matthew moved a strand of hair from my face to behind my ear, eyes still full of desire. Matthew stared silently at me, unsure of what to say. However, I could tell that he was full, yet yearning. I could feel the hold of his mind-altering spell fade away, but I still felt hot. Something told me I wanted more, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if I truly did want to give any more. We're gonna keep going. I opened the opportunity and was enjoying it as much as he was. I wanted more, and I was going to let him keep going. I wanted to keep going. I leaned up and kissed him again. Matthew gasped against my lips, but continued to kiss back. I could feel him pull on the tail of my bow, releasing it and following his hand off from around my neck. He moved the ribbon into his pocket before gently unbuttoning the top 2 buttons of my blouse. The desire in my body drove me insane, forcing a moan to escape my lips as he ran kisses up my lips, from my lips down to my exposed neck. As he began to ravish my neck and shoulder in hot kisses, I leaned my head back and let a pleasureful sigh escape my lips. Matthew was ruthless in his passionate kisses on my skin. Matthew didn't stop touching and kissing me, making more moans and gasps rush out of my mouth into the open air. He may have been full, but he was as hot as I was. I couldn't even comprehend how much time we spent making out. I was lost in the pleasure that I didn't care. Call it sinful, but I didn't care. I loved it. His touch, his kiss, his heat. I desired it beyond anything at that moment, even as he lowered his kisses down my chest to just above my bra. My heart was beating wildly in my chest. Something about Matthew intrigued me immensely, but something made my heart quicken for him. It couldn't have been love, but it was too passionate to be lust. What was it? However, I began to feel dizzy, seeing the ceiling start to spin almost wildly. I gripped to Matthew's shoulders, trying to signal him to stop, but my mind faded to black before I could let out another sound. I felt good. I didn't care that I was blacked out. I felt warm and fuzzy in the darkness. I never knew indulging in that kind of passion would be that good. I now just waited to awaken, hopefully in a good way. Before I turned to get out of bed, though, I spotted my ribbon on the pillow beside the one I slept on. It was tied around Simon Tabby in a nice bow with a small note attached to it. I gently slipped the note from the tie and opened it to read it.
I'm really, really, really sorry. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Please forgive me?
I stared at the note, letting a small smile grace my lips. You went too far? I enjoyed it a lot. It was cute, though, to imagine him thanking me for something we both did and enjoyed. I brought the note to to my chest, letting the memories of our meeting flood my mind. I indulged myself too, Matthew. Before I could reach the handle of the door, however, someone took my hand. Huh? I turned to see Matthew, who was holding my hand back with a concerned frown on his face.
My name.
Your name?
My true name isn't Matthew. I want you to know my real name. If something were to happen.
His true name. What did he mean? Why was he telling me this now? Matthew gently pulled me to him and leaned close to whisper in my ear.
My name is Zekeru.
Zekeru. I'm surprised he didn't go with Zachariah, because it sounds very similar. As he said his name, I could feel it lock into my memory. Something in my head would make sure that I would never forget it. Matthew pulled away and smiled at me, despite still carrying worry in his eyes.
If you are in any danger, call my name. I promise that I'll come and help you.
I stared up at Matthew, unable to say anything. I could only nod in response. Matthew smiled before releasing my hand and heading into the dining room. Something told me that name would be used eventually. Zekeru! All of a sudden, a bright purple light engulfed the room, causing the devils around me to cover themselves.
What the?
Gusts of wind raced past me, almost forcing me back. I covered my face with my arms, bracing myself and standing my ground. I tried to peek through my arms to see what was going on, but the light continued to shine brightly. As the gusts slowly started to die, the light began to fade, revealing Matthew with his hands shoved in his pockets and his hood up. Matthew. Malik slowly moved his arms from his face, taking in the sight of Matthew before laughing hysterically.
Are you kidding me? You summoned the crybaby runt?
Malik's laugh was cut short, however, stopped by his gasp of pain and the thud of something embedding itself into flesh. I couldn't believe it, but somehow a knife had been stabbed into Malik's shoulder, causing him to grip at it in pain.
What the hell? A knife?
Next time, I won't miss your throat.
Well, this just got interesting. Malik snarled before ripping the knife out of his shoulder and tossing it to the ground. He quickly raised his gun and shot at Matthew, resulting only to stare wide-eyed at his target. In midair, a knife and Malik's bullet clashed, and both collided to the ground between the demon and the devil. Matthew chuckled and pulled a hand out of his pockets, revealing a handful of knives splayed out like a fan.
Too slow, Malix. Must suck being an old fart.
Malix instantly grew furious, charging at Matthew while shooting rounds at Matthew's shadow-covered face. Matthew followed suit, rushing backwards and shot his knives at each of Malix's shots. Each shot was stopped by a flying knife, making multiple clangs beat through the air. The remaining devils stared, trying to figure out what to do. Help Malix or watch in silence? Eris, however, walked up beside me and crossed her arms as she watched with an enormous smirk on her face. As Matthew backed into a far wall, he stood still, tossing knife upon knife at the coming devil and his bullets.
Gotcha, you knife-throwing circus freak!
You call that an insult? I saw a smirk grow on Matthew's face before he hopped up and flipped over Malix. The devil skidded to a stop, barely bumping against the brick wall. Matthew, however, didn't give Malix a chance to turn before shooting multiple knives into Malix's back.
Bye-bye, Malix.
Matthew tossed the knife into the air and caught it before chucking it at the back of Malix's head. The knife sadly didn't get to meet the target, as Malix ducked out of the way and turned to face Matthew with a face of pure rage.
You little shit! You think you're all that?
Matthew brought out another knife and tossed it up and down in his hand, unchanged in his cool yet almost playful expression.
Little known fact, I just like having fun.
That's a load of bull, Matthew. You won't even fight me in your demon form. Why? Are you afraid I'll kill you as the demon scum you really are?
Demon form? I didn't understand. However, Matthew broke my thoughts from trying to figure that out.
Hey, mind closing your eyes for me?
Huh?
What are you babbling about now?
Before I could answer, the tension suddenly went from warm to almost ice cold. Then, at that moment, something in the air changed. The air instantly went from frantic to still in energy. What could have been described in tone as the color red quickly turned to a deadly mix of purple and blue, as everything began to blend together all at once.
You asked for it, Malix. Now you're gonna get it.
My eyes never strayed from Matthew's face, however. Even as it changed, his eyes began to glow a bright golden color as a dark blue circle formed underneath Matthew's bare feet. I stared as Matthew's skin began to morph and shift, changing from human to something else. For some reason, I was both scared and incredibly intrigued to see his new form. Before I was allowed to see Matthew's new form, however, a pair of hands quickly covered my eyes. Instinctively, I reached up and gripped them, trying to pull them off. A voice stopped me.
It's me. Don't look.
I listened carefully and let the last two words linger in my mind. Don't look. Why? What was being hidden from me? I wanted to know, but something told me to obey Damien's command. I suddenly heard gunshots, making me tense up, but then I heard the sound of multiple stabs, followed by Malix's screams of pain. The stabbing and splashing sounds of blood and flesh grew more frantic in the number. How many knives was Matthew using? Maybe it was better that I wasn't able to see.
Matthew, enough!
Almost instantly after James's command, the sound stopped. The only thing anyone could hear then was the dripping of blood.
I guess I went a little overboard. Huh?
Malix is definitely dead, but you've lost your glamour spell.
Thank you, Eric. Glamour spell. What did he mean? Why did Matthew sound so different? Why was this being hidden from me?
It's a spell that makes us look human.
Thank you, Damien. I froze. Look human. They didn't have human forms after all? What did they look like?
Like demons.
Well, thank you. That's very specific. As if Eric knew what Damien was talking about, Eric cleared his throat and spoke up, followed by the sound of a cork popping out of a bottle.
Well, not for much longer, Princess. Here, Matthew.
Oh, hey, you found my potion. Thanks.
I could hear the small clinking of glass being passed before hearing Matthew guzzle down a liquid of some sort. The feel of the air around me gently began to warm back up, insinuating that everything had been returned to normal. Finally, Damien moved his hand from my eyes, allowing me to see around me once again. The devils, including Eris, had fled. On top of Malix's body was a dirty sheet that was quickly turning red from blood. The wall behind it was painted red in blood, still dripping onto the floor and onto the blanket. The blanket looked like it was covering a mound of dirt instead of a body. The boys, however, had gathered around me, all of them, including Matthew, looking like nothing had happened. What just... I tried to speak, but everything zipped around in my head at the whole event, and I felt like speaking wasn't possible.
Let's just get you home, miss. There's nothing more to see here.
As if he knew what I wanted, Matthew moved and stepped to me, taking my hand in his. He gently smiled at me as he spoke.
I want you to know that you've been really generous to us, and I want to thank you for letting us stay here. But is it okay if we stay a little longer?
My heart skipped while a large red blush ran across my cheeks. The boys stared at Matthew wide-eyed, but didn't dare to speak out. Matthew stepped back to give me space, returning to where he was. I like that he and Eric both moved that time. Ah, my mouse is in a bad place. I moved my gaze across each boy, trying to make a decision. Let them stay, of course. I wanted them to stay. I wanted him to stay. I merely smiled, staring at the man I had come to have feelings for before speaking at last. I would love it if you all could stay. The boys cheered tiredly, but nonetheless enthusiastically. I giggled at the sight. It was cute to see everyone so excited, despite the tiredness that ran equally through our bodies. Today was a rough day. My home is your home, as long as you can still help with the chores. The boys nodded in unison, agreeing to the terms I had set for them. Despite the good situation, I felt myself slowly slipping into unconsciousness. However, James quickly clapped his hands together, getting everyone's attention and waking me up, making sure I didn't pass out on the floor.
All right, everyone. We're all very tired, so let's head to bed, shall we?
I watched a happy smile grow onto Matthew's lips. He shared my excitement, knowing that we would be together longer. Who knew how long we would stay together? All I cared about was that I would be with him. The others quickly left to finally rest, leaving me and Matthew alone at last. My heart fluttered a bit as Matthew practically skipped closer to me in excitement. It was really cute to see him that way, so I didn't do anything but smile.
Thank you so much for letting us stay.
You're welcome, Matthew. I'm happy to have you stay here. I watched his smile brighten a bit before he cleared his throat and chuckled a bit. I didn't know if it was the tiredness or my growing attachment to him, but I felt myself sway a bit on my feet. However, Matthew's face made it clear that he wanted to say something else, making me forget that my bed was also calling for me.
Listen, about what happened at the warehouse.
No, it's fine. You did what you had to do. I understand. I had accepted everything that had happened and knew that Matthew had to do what he had to do. He was real and he was someone I didn't want to be without, even if that meant nodding against my curiosity. Besides, I was too tired to explore that memory further. Matthew nodded before holding out a hand to me.
Come on then, let's get you to bed.
I nodded before Matthew gently lifted me up into his arms like a bride and carried me to my room. I didn't want to leave his arms, leaning my head against Matthew's chest, but eventually I was slowly lowered to my bed and covered with my bed covers. I was still in my school clothes, but I was too tired to strip or care. I looked to Matthew, fighting a yawn from escaping me as he gently ran a hand over my hair.
Have a good night, okay? I'll make breakfast again in the morning.
I nodded with a tired smile before watching him slowly stand and leave my room, closing the door. A wave of happiness rushed over me as I laid in bed. I made a good choice. Sure, it would be hard, but I could tell that I would be able to manage it. Help around the house and being with the man whom I was slowly starting to fall for would be worth it. I slowly felt my exhaustion take over. I let sleep consume me as I drifted into the darkness in my mind. Matthew walked over to me and held my hand gently, looking at me with a smile.
Everything will be okay. Promise.
I nodded, feeling that he was telling the truth, or at least a hopeful and comforting thought, and smiled back. Matthew gently leaned close to me and kissed my cheek, however, making me blush and forget what I was thinking about. The sound of collective chuckles and playful snickers whispered through the air, making me blush even more. But the laughter stopped as Sam let out an oof after a fluffy object collided with his face. I looked up to see Matthew was glaring at his brothers holding up a fluffy anime blushie. And I pulled away from each other just as the sound of Naomi's car appeared. I quickly ate my food, waved to the boys, and left confident that nothing was going to happen. That's it. That's all I get of Simon. Just hitting someone in the face. After what seemed like hours, I finally woke up, slightly refreshed. My body knew that if I slept any longer, I'd be up all night, which was not part of the plan for the day. I rubbed my eyes and sat up, letting a soft groan escape my lips. In response, something beside my bed shuffled, causing me to look over. I didn't know what I was expecting. Beside me, sitting in a chair beside the bed, was Matthew, rousing himself up to see me awake. I smiled at him, seeing his slightly ruffled hair and tired eyes.
Oh, you're awake. How do you feel?
Matthew nodded before he looked down at the bed, taking my hands into his.
I'm really sorry. I'm really, really sorry.
Matthew, it's not your fault.
No, please listen. I know that Diana and Malix have come after you because of us, so it's our fault that you're constantly in danger. If I hadn't convinced everyone to come to the human world, we would have never been attacked by Malix and hunted down and brought you in danger and...
I quickly reached over and put my finger on his lips, stopping him from going any further. I didn't want to hear any more. Matthew, it's okay. I wanted to help you out. I offered to let you all stay. Nothing is your fault. I gently moved my hand and cupped Matthew's cheek, staring at him with concern. I didn't want him to hold guilt in his mind about this whole ordeal. Diana was desperate, and she'd hunt anyone for them. It wasn't his fault she was desperate enough to hunt them down. However, I grew curious. So, Matthew, you're a noble. Matthew looked at me and gave me a goofy smile.
I was once, but even if I had the title, I didn't really feel like a noble.
How come?
Well, I was the fourth noble son of the Demon Lord. With Eric and Sam ahead of me in case James couldn't fulfill his duties, there was no way I was getting the throne. So I spent the majority of my time trying to make my mother happy. She was always unhappy.
Unhappy? How come?
Well, my dad was he married 4 different women. Each of us came from a different mother, and my mother was the last to be married and bear a son. The thing with succubi, though, is that they get jealous very easily.
Hi! So what happened?
The other wives got mad and scorned each other. It wasn't violent, but we never ate together for a reason. My mom, though, was too proud to have jealousy. She was the last woman the Demon Lord married, so she felt important. She felt that because he stopped marrying, she had the charm to stop his marrying spree.
Matthew let out a small laugh, a hint of depression lingering in the breath he let out.
But then the Demon Lord took another woman and she bore him a son outside of wedlock. Damien. The wives, including my mother, were furious. In response, the Demon Lord had a spell cast on them, turning them into spiritual orbs.
That's horrible. Matthew nodded, pressing his lips together in both agreement and sadness.
They could never have physical form, and they lost all their powers. They became slaves trapped in the Demon Lord's castle. However, they were kept alive to make sure their sons grew up to be competent demons.
You coming? I have a kitty now. Yay! I'm sorry. Matthew gently shrugged, letting a small, nostalgic smile grace his lips.
She taught me how to be a demon, though. Not just a demon, a grown, adult demon. I read books, I learned strategy, everything that James was doing under the Demon Lord's watch. Only, I trained with just my mother. She wanted me to surprise the Demon Lord one last time, and maybe take the throne away from James. You've done a lot for me and my brothers, sheltering us, letting us continue to live here. It may not seem like much, but for us it's everything. But I don't want you to get hurt because of us.
I watched in speechless silence as Matthew lifted his head, eyes full of almost hopelessness.
That's why I'm sorry.
Matthew lowered his head in shame. I couldn't help but feel my heart squeeze within my chest at the sight. He truly cared. Matthew let out a small sigh before looking to me with a smile. He hid his sadness well, but I could tell he was still upset about the whole ordeal.
Alright. You need to sleep and I need to make dinner. I'll wake you up when dinner is done.
Matthew gently pressed me back down onto the bed, resolved in what had happened. Steal a kiss, steal a kiss. I couldn't let him leave without doing something. I quickly pulled Matthew down to me, lifted my head, and gently kissed him softly, laying a hand on his cheek to keep his face close. Matthew stared in deep surprise before hesitantly kissing me back, caressing my cheek and slightly melting at the touch of our lips. A soft sigh escaped his lips before he slowly pulled away with a smile. He gently licked his lips, making me go red in the face at the simple gesture. He let out a satisfied sigh before nuzzling my forehead.
Go to sleep.
And with that, he stood up and left the room, leaving me to rest as per his request. I smiled to myself before relaxing into the mattress.
Leave me alone.
My heart stopped. Diana was with Matthew. My mind flew into slow motion, playing fake images of Diana trying to seduce Matthew in my head to further fan the angry flames inside of me. I instinctively followed Matthew's voice. I was approaching the grand lobby and followed the commotion into the dining room. The sound was echoing from the kitchen, so I peeked inside while hiding around the corner. I growled at the sight. Matthew was holding on to one side of the kitchen island counter, with Diana holding the other side, looking to him with a smirk.
Oh, come on, Matthew. Don't you like games? A game of tag sounds so fun.
Not with you. Now go away.
I'm hurt. Wounded, truly. Did I go too far?
You went too far when you came here and attacked her.
Pity. And here I thought I was going to offer you the chance to become something better than just a simple incubus.
What was Diana going on about? more than just an incubus? She was insane.
How about becoming the next demon lord?
I froze. What did she mean? Becoming the next demon lord? The boys weren't in the demon world anymore. They had no claim to the throne anymore. Matthew stared at Diana, which made me worried.
The next demon lord?
Well, currently, I'm the contracted bride to the heir to the throne. Since the throne is open, it's available to any son of the demon lord's line. Think about it. You'll gain the throne, the land, and a bride to continue your lineage with. Doesn't that sound like a perfect life for an incubus like you? You'll show your father and mother how grown up you are, that you're not just some little cute boy people can take for granted.
I could feel myself gripping my fist tightly in anger. How dare this girl try to convince Matthew to return to the demon world? He ran away from it. He didn't have to go back. He shouldn't go back. My mind began to wander, imagining him saying yes. He would leave and the brothers would follow to bring him back. They'd be trapped because Diana would make sure they could never leave. Matthew would be the new demon lord with Diana as his queen, and I'd lose him.
Like I would believe you.
You don't need to believe me, Matthew. You just need to come back home with me. I promise, you'll be respected as you were supposed to be.
I'm not falling for it.
Fall for what? The truth? The truth is that your brothers still treat you like a child, even though the demon world is far behind you. The truth is that your little human love affair is fleeting. She can never see you as a man, just as a little boy who wants to grow up.
Stop it!
I stared as Matthew chuckled a handful. I stared as Matthew chucked a handful of knives at Diana, who ducked and dodged them with ease. They dug themselves into the tile wall before fading away, as if they didn't exist.
You dare attack me?
I'm not going back. And that is final!
I could see Matthew's muscle tense and flex, wanting to attack Diana. The girl in question, however, took a deep breath and looked to Matthew with a pleading look.
You won't even return to your mother? She's been crying ever since you left.
Do not bring her into this!
Matthew glared as Diana circled the island towards him.
She begged me to bring you back. She wants you to get what you deserve. The throne.
I don't believe you!
Matthew then walked away from Diana, heading to the fridge to start dinner, as if she wasn't there. Diana stopped and leaned against the counter.
She'll never love you, you know.
I don't mind. I care for her.
The human girl? You must be joking. A human like her can't possibly provide you what you need. She's a human. You're a demon.
I felt the urge to storm in and shut her mouth. It would give away my position, but I was growing extremely tired of Diana. Barge in and set her straight. I decided to be assertive and quickly stepped into the room, rushing to be in front of Matthew. Diana and Matthew looked at me in surprise as I glared daggers at Diana. Get out.
Well, well, little human. You're awfully nosy in business that doesn't concern you.
It's in my kitchen. It concerns me. It does concern me.
Does it? I don't think a human would understand the importance of this affair.
You're asking him to leave to be someone he doesn't want to be. That's not going to happen.
Oh? And what makes you so sure about that?
I love him. Diana stared in shock at my exclamation. Was it not what she expected? I didn't care what she expected. I wasn't going to lose the man I had grown to love.
You love him?
Yes, I love him. Diana's lips twitched, the edges curling into an amused smirk as she stared at me.
So what? A human's love isn't enough to understand the situation. A demon can never reciprocate human feeling.
To both of our surprise, however, Matthew stepped forward and put an arm around me, pulling me close to his body.
I love her.
I saw the confidence Diana had shatter in her eyes as she stared at Matthew at his words. I could see the struggle in her face to try and find some weakness in Matthew, in me, anything.
A demon love a human? Impossible.
You heard me. I love her, Diana. I'd do anything for her, and she cares for me more than anyone in the abyssal plane ever had. More than you'll ever know. She makes me feel like the adult I'm supposed to be, and there's nothing you can do to change that, ever.
Diana took a step back, physically feeling the sting of Matthew's words in her chest. She had lost. I could see it in her eyes. Diana's eyes grew dull as she glared at me and Matthew. It seemed almost uncharacteristic of her, yet it was something I wasn't surprised to see come from her face.
Very well. Fine. Valet.
And with that, Diana faded into the ground into a purple pentagram, crossing her arms and almost looking upset. Matthew and I were then left alone, left with the silence of the room. I finally let out the air I was unconsciously holding in my chest, relaxing from the ordeal. Matthew stepped to me and held me gently, surprising me.
Are you all right?
I nodded in response, unable to speak so immediately after being surprised. Matthew let out a sigh, relaxing in the embrace. I gently placed my hands around him, returning the embrace slightly. I could hear Matthew's heartbeat. He held me close in his arms, and I felt safe beyond words. Are you okay?
Of course I'm okay. I'm holding you.
I looked up at Matthew, surprised at what he said. Matthew blushed, moving a strand of hair from my face to look down at me.
You mean so much to me. You make me feel like more than just a kid. I've never felt this happy before with anyone, and here you are giving me every reason to love you. I love you so friggin' much.
I stared wide-eyed, blushing like a maniac. Was this real? No way. This couldn't be real. Was Matthew confessing to me? Confessing his love for me? Matthew gently caressed my cheeks, staring into my eyes with a loving, almost hopeful expression. The warmth of his hand invited me to nuzzle into it, closing my eyes. This wasn't a dream. My heart was pounding hard enough where I was sure Matthew could hear it. Matthew gently leaned in, closing his eyes. He stopped, however, remaining just a mere torturous inch away from my lips. He wanted me to show my feelings for him. He had left himself open for me to kiss him or leave him empty. The power I had was unbelievable. And kiss him. I loved him and wanted to give him exactly what he wanted. I gently leaned in, letting my lips finally touch his gingerly. Matthew let out almost a surprised gasp against my lips before wrapping both of his arms around my waist, pulling me close to him. I moved my arms up and around his neck, feeling the kiss between us deepen to a heated height. My chest was pounding, making me feel and see fireworks in my mind. Matthew was everything I desired. He was the man I wanted, demon or not. It was all so supernatural to fall in love with someone so quickly. Maybe it was the sense of magic I was thrown into. Maybe it was Cupid playing with my heart. Either way, I found myself melting at the thought of him being with me. Blah, blah. I found myself combing my fingers through Matthew's hair, making the man holding me softly tremble at my touch. He gently nibbled on my lower lip, asking me to deepen the kiss between us even further. I easily teased him before finally opening my mouth slightly for him. His tongue gently danced with mine as one of his hands slid up my back and cradled my head. He gently leaned my body back, making me cling to him as if the heat of our kiss rose higher and higher. As the heat. Whatever. Gently, though, Matthew slowed the kiss down and pulled away, staring down at me. His eyes burned for me, wanting me to melt and buckle in his arms. I could feel myself melt already. Matthew opened his mouth to speak, but as a very small blush ran along his cheeks, he was reduced to shy silence. I stared as he tried to find the words to say in my eyes. I knew exactly what he wanted. He didn't need energy, though, right? Are you...
No, I
stared wide-eyed, feeling a blush on my cheeks grow. He didn't say anything more, but I knew what words would have followed if he continued. He wanted me. I was stunned. Was I that appealing to him? Was his passion really that deep for me? Matthew gently nuzzled my forehead, losing the blush and finally being able to speak.
If you don't want to, we don't have to. I mean, it's up to you.
I could feel my mind go numb and purr at the idea. A moment with an incubus. He was a demon of sex, the purest form of lust and desire. My world would rock, and I would enjoy every second of it. At the same time, I was indeed inexperienced. Diana wasn't wrong when she claimed me to be innocent.
She didn't say that in this go-through, I don't think.
Did I want to give that innocence to him, especially this early? I found myself forgetting the words yes and no. What could I say to him? I knew then that I wanted what I wanted, but how to say it without breaking the moment. Couldn't believe the words that came out of my mouth. It made the most sense to tell him yes. I needed him. I wanted him. Those 2 words must have made something in him finally break. Matthew gently wrapped his arms around me and went back to kissing me passionately. I could feel energy whiz about me, making me open one eye to see blue light glowing around us. When the light subsided, I was in my bedroom, on my bed, with Matthew above me. I stared as Matthew held a look of both lust and love. My heart skipped a beat simply from his gaze. This was okay. I wanted to see all of him and give myself to him. I gently guided his head to me, kissing him slowly and bringing him further into the mood. Matthew slid both his hoodie and his shirt off and tossed them to the side before cradling my head in his hands and kissing me deeply. I felt heat rise in my body, making me undo the tie underneath my collar and release the buttons on my own shirt. Quickly, I removed my shirt and vest, making Matthew stop kissing me and stare in slight surprise. I was simply in a bra, but I could feel a blush invade my cheeks. My shy side began to fester in my mind. Did I really want this, to undress before a demon? No, this was the man I loved, and yet I felt my innocence drape over me in almost shame. I needed to fight it. I quickly rolled both of us over to where I was sitting on Matthew's lap, staring down at him. Matthew sat up, looking at me with one of the most sexiest smiles I'd ever seen. Matthew pulled me close, knowing I was still shy, and began to kiss my lips over and over. Each kiss was his promise to keep me safe, keep me comfortable, love me. I kept my arms wrapped around Matthew, taking each kiss he gave and giving him my own kisses in return. I didn't know if it was the fact that we were both top nude or maybe just craved his touch, but I didn't want him to let go. However, as he held me, I could slightly feel the shiver of his hands. Was I his first? He wasn't going to tell me. He wanted me to enjoy this moment, but was afraid of screwing up. His shivering hands showed me his emotions perfectly. As he laid me down and knelt over me, Matthew smiled and finally embraced me as we both desired. The pleasure between us would be heavenly, and we'd go through it together. I closed my eyes and gave myself to Matthew. I let out a happy sigh before looking up and seeing where I had wandered to. I realized that I was standing in the dining room. I stopped at the smell of baked goods, taking a gigantic whiff. I let the smell of sugar and sweets fill my senses. Matthew must be baking again. I tiptoed over and peeked into the kitchen, wanting to know what he was making.
Almost done.
I watched as Matthew started to decorate an already wonderful-looking cake with blue and white frosting. It looked delicious. I was practically salivating. However, as I watched him, I smiled. He looked so concentrated in his work, it was adorable.
And there! Perfect!
Matthew stepped back from the cake, allowing me to see his masterpiece. It indeed was perfect. I wanted to taste it, and soon. That looks amazing, Matthew.
What?
Matthew quickly turned to me in surprise, trying to hide the cake as I laughed.
I'm not done. I mean...
Matthew. I walked over and smiled, giving him a kiss before walking around him to the cake. Closer. It all looks more scrumptious. Suspicious? What is this for?
Well, I mean, it's for something pretty important.
I looked to Matthew, raising an eyebrow as he wrapped an arm around my waist. What is it for?
Guess. I'll give you 3 chances.
Or what? What if I don't get it right?
Then the cake is all mine.
Hey, no fair. Instinctively, I wanted to pull away, but Matthew laughed and dabbed some whipped cream on my nose from a nearby decorating spatula.
It's totally fair. Now just guess.
Is it your birthday? Matthew shook his head.
Nope. Second guess.
Is it an anniversary? Matthew nodded, but before I could cheer, Matthew rotated his hand, gesturing me to continue.
Anniversary of?
I puffed my cheeks. I could memorize facts and lessons, but dates were bad. It was like asking a girly girl when her boyfriend's frat party was. Matthew laughed before he kissed my cheek, making my puffed cheeks deflate.
It's the anniversary of when we first met.
I had practically forgotten. He was right. It had been only a couple of years since I moved in and met Matthew and his brothers. He threw a party last year for it. How could I have forgotten? Time definitely flew. Matthew. Matthew smiled at me, making my heart flutter and squee once again. I love that word, squee.
I want to celebrate it every year in a different way. Next year will be something extraordinary. For now, though, this cake will do.
I quickly pulled Matthew's head down with my hand and kissed him sweetly, wanting to show my appreciation with a kiss. He stared at me as if his greatest wish had come true. I fought back a giggle at the sight. Matthew gently pulled me to him, hugging me to his chest. I nuzzled into Matthew's chest, hearing his gentle heartbeat and memorizing its tempo.
I love you.
I love you too. Before I could finish, suddenly the cake, which had been sitting silently and peacefully on the counter, exploded into a giant mess on it. Matthew, luckily, was quick enough to pull us back before we got hit with flying cake pieces. I quit opening the door.
What the?
I looked at the cake to see a very mischievous little creature standing over the cake, triumphant at what he had done. I began to laugh as Matthew grew red-faced.
Simon Tabby!
I quickly rushed over and grabbed Simon, who made a squeak noise in my hands. I was still giggling as Matthew came over and glared daggers at the white doll covered in cake. To calm Matthew down, however, I stretched up on my toes and kissed him softly on the lips. Matthew stared, but kissed back, not wanting to let me go without a kiss of my own. I love you, Matthew. Matthew sighed before smiling at me, finally calm.
I love you too.
I didn't want to wake up if this was indeed a dream. I felt light as a feather, not wanting to ever let go of this man in my life. There were no words that could describe the emotions within me. I felt joy, happiness, ecstatic high all at once. Here I was with the man I would be with forever, with a cake I would delight in, even in pieces. I had gained the heart of a demon, no, of a man I loved. I vowed to cherish him and love him for the remainder of my days and beyond. Could a demon love a human forever? I knew Matthew would. And that was my happily ever after. End. Matthew's cake. There we go. Demon War. I already had the password. Yay! So that is the end of Matthew's ending. I was hoping to see more of Simon, but it really wasn't that much of him, and you didn't actually see him, which kind of sucked, because that was the whole reason I wanted to do Matthew's ending. So I think I am officially done with Seduce Me the Otome. Eventually I'll probably get into the Demon War. I'm not even sure if that's out yet. I have to go back and read things, because there's so many games coming out, and I can't remember what's what. I am logging off now. I'll see you guys later, and remember to do something nice for a stranger today. You may just save a life. Bye!